Every current Hashira versus the Demon King Muzan. Before we can assess which side will win, we'll need to look at each of the Hashira's best feats. And first, we're going to look at Shinobu. Shinobu doesn't have very much raw strength. In fact, she comes in at dead last in terms of physical strength. However, her attack speed and intelligence are among the highest within the Hashira. Her greatest feat comes from the large storage of poison in her body, which was used to eliminate Doma. Next, we're going to talk about Tengen Uzui. Uzui is the fastest Hashira in terms of running speed and the second strongest in terms of physical strength. Uzui is also a former shinobi, which has helped him to build up resistance to poison as well as developed his tactician skills. Uzui's greatest feat is being able to predict Upper Moon 6's attacks using his score as well as keeping up with Gyutaro in close quarter combat. Now we'll look at Mitsuri Kanroji. Mitsuri has 8 times the muscle density of a normal human being, making her very physically strong. Her best feats include withstanding a point-blank attack from Upper Moon 4, as well as dodging Muzan's attacks that she couldn't visibly see with pure instinct. Next up is Rengoku Kyojuro. The Flame Hashira is one of the top-ranking Hashira in terms of sheer willpower, and he has also been praised by many of the other Hashira for his skill with the sword. Rengoku's greatest feat is being able to keep up with Upper Moon 3 for a period of time and still having the strength to almost cut Akaza's neck even after Akaza had turned him into a donut. Jiyu is the 5th Hashira we'll be looking at. Out of all of the Hashira, Jiyu is the strongest defensively. His first large feat is fighting all of the lower moons for hours in the Infinity Fortress, and then being able to go on and fight Akaza alongside Tanjiro. His second feat is sparring with the second strongest Hashira, Sanemi, and the battle coming to a draw. Although the outcome would have been different if it was a fight to the death. Now we'll talk about Muichiro, a user of the Breath of Mist. This Hashira is the youngest Demon Slayer to become a Hashira and was the first current Hashira to receive a Demon Slayer mark. His greatest feat is being able to beat Upper Moon 5 all by himself, as well as being praised by Upper Moon 1, and this happened even before Upper Moon 1 was shown Muichiro's Demon Slayer mark. Now, the 7th Hashira we'll look at is Iguro Obanai, the Breath of Snake user. Iguro's greatest feat is that he's able to keep up with Muzan just like Gyome and Sanemi, but he did so without his Demon Slayer mark. He was able to do this while being blind as well. After all of the Hashira were put out of commission by Muzan, the first one to get back on his feet was Iguro, and he got up just in time to save Tanjiro. Next up is the Breath of Wind user, Sanemi Shinzagawa. Sanemi is no stranger to fighting. In fact, he's been fighting demons with his bare hands since he was a child. In terms of overall strength, Sanemi is second right behind Gyome, and his fighting style is generally leaning towards the attack type. His biggest feat comes from his Upper Moon 1 fight alongside Gyome, where he was able to keep fighting effectively even while unconscious. And right after this fight, he was able to go up against Muzan and evade his attacks with ease, even when some of the other Hashira that hadn't fought in Upper Moon struggled to keep up. Now for the strongest pillar, the stone-breathing Hashira, Gyome. Not only is he the overall strongest, but also the most physically inclined. He's a great tactician, and above all, he has above average awareness due to his blindness. His greatest feat, thanks to his stamina, is being able to fight lower moons for 5 hours in the Infinity Fortress, then fighting Upper Moon 1 without exhausting himself, and then being able to evade Muzan's attacks while effectively fighting. Alright, now that we've assessed the strengths of the Hashiras, let's look at Muzan. Muzan is the Demon King and Demon Slayer, and his blood art is biokinesis, which allows him to alter and control his flesh, limbs, and organs like we see him do in the final fight. He's able to split into hundreds of pieces and fully regenerate back to his original shape. Speaking of shape, he's also able to shapeshift, which we see him do in his final fight, as he turns into a giant-shaped baby that was easily able to smash cars. Muzan has a total of 7 hearts and 5 brains, which all need to be destroyed in order for him to die. Likewise, it seems like the most effective way of cutting him is with red Nichiren blades. While we're looking at this battle between the Hashiras and Muzan, we're going to assume that the setting and the time remain the same, as was shown in the manga. So the Hashira will have to hold out against Muzan for at least an hour and a half until sunrise comes. Now comes the big question, can they do it or not? Let's look at how it would go down. Firstly, I'm going to put the Hashiras into teams, but before I do, I just want to point out that I was originally thinking of having Shinobu be a sacrifice just like in the Doma fight, but that wouldn't be realistic since Muzan wouldn't have time to eat anybody while fighting the other Hashira, so I'm not going to have Shinobu do that. Now, the first team is the attack-based team consisting of Gyome, Sanemi, Uzi, Iguro, Rengoku, and Muichiro. Everyone on this attack team in some way, shape, or form has demonstrated above average offensive techniques in their battles. Sanemi is purely an attack type, Uzui has his score that helps him predict his opponent's attacks, Rengoku continuously pushes forward through sheer willpower, Muichiro was praised for his skill by Upper Moon 1, and Gyome most obviously is the strongest current Hashira. Now, the second team is going to be the support squad, consisting of Kanroji, Jiyu, and Shinobu. The support squad is mainly here to help the other Hashira get out of harm's way if they're tired, or to parry Muzan's attacks that may land on one of the attacking squad members. Kanroji is on this team mainly because she isn't adept enough to be on the main attacking team. Jiyu is on the support squad because he has the strongest defensive techniques of all the Hashira, and Shinobu is here because it was stated in the manga that she's too weak to cut off many demons' heads, although her attack speed is above average. So, let the battle begin. Guillaume, Sanemi, Iguro, and Rengoku launch at Muzan, who already has his tentacles flailing about. Meanwhile, Uzui stays behind trying to find patterns in Muzan's attacks. Now, shortly after the attacking squad leaps in the battle, the support squad follows through as well. Although the Hashira have the numbers advantage, Muzan is able to hold his ground and has dealt minor injuries to all the Hashiras present except for Uzui, because he's still analyzing. 20 minutes have passed and the Hashira have been worn down greatly, and they've also come to realize that they've been poisoned, although the only two that have the resistance to this poison is Shinobu and Uzui. While the attack team, including Uzui, lunges at Muzan, Rengoku receives a large blow to the torso and Kanroji comes to help him to the edge of the battlefield. She's carrying Rengoku for about 5 seconds before one of Muzan's tentacles comes stabbing through her chest. Although she is greatly injured, due to her insane muscle density, she's able to carry Rengoku to safety. 30 minutes have passed since the battle started, and now noticing his lover is in trouble, OpenEye goes to the side of the battlefield to check up on Rengoku and Mitsuri. However, when he leaves the battlefield, the burden on the rest of the Hashira increases while fighting Muzan. Muichiro, having one of the smallest bodies of the Hashira, collapses due to poison circulating in his body, but when the other Hashira look over, they see a strange mark on him. A Demon Slayer mark. Realizing what they must do, heavily injured Mitsuri, heavily poisoned Iguro, both having their marks appear, join the fray once again, while Rengoku closes his wounds using his breathing techniques. 35 minutes have passed since the beginning of the battle, and the most heavily injured Hashiras Rengoku, Mitsuri, and Iguro all know that they are likely to die soon. They're waiting for some kind of opening to attack, and that opening comes when Sanemi and Guillaume unleash a devastating barrage of attacks, but this was only a cover, because the sneaky shinobi Uzui is the crux of this plan. While Muzan is focused on the two strongest Hashira, Uzui is able to evade most of the attacks, and the attacks that he wasn't able to evade, Shinobu was able to parry. Now all of this is happening in a mere 5 seconds. Uzui and Shinobu are able to destroy 2 of the hearts, although now, having all of Muzan's attention, they attempt to fall back, but were unable to do so. Shinobu ends up getting cut in half, while Uzui's gets slashed through the eye, but still remains standing. With Muzan distracted on Uzui and Shinobu, on the other side, in a last-ditch effort with their remaining strength, marked Mitsuri, Iguro, and Rengoku lunge at Muzan. Rengoku uses his flame-breathing 9th form, Mitsuri uses her breath of love 5th form, and Iguro uses snake-breathing 5th form. These 3 lunge at Muzan, who is only 15 feet away from them, and he has begun to turn around. Muzan slings his tentacles in their direction, and Mitsuri cuts those tentacles with her breath of love, then collapses. Now 10 feet away, Muzan has fired another barrage of tentacles, and Iguro is easily able to slice those apart. With Muzan's chest wide open, Rengoku lands his 9th form, slashing 2 of his hearts and 2 brains. The tentacles from his first barrage have regenerated, however, and Rengoku is impaled. Iguro is able to escape thanks to Jiyu defending him and pulling him to safety. However, Iguro looks over toward the direction he came from, only to see Mitsuri lying on the ground, bled out and dead. Now 41 minutes have passed since the beginning of the battle. 3 Hashira are dead, Mitsuri, Rengoku, and Shinobu. 3 Hashiras are gravely injured, Uzui, Michiro, and Iguro, and 3 Hashiras remain relatively unscathed, Jiyu, Guillaume, and Sanemi. Muzan has lost 4 hearts and 2 brains, so he has 3 left of each. Having lost these organs, it slowed his regeneration down greatly. Now, back to the battle, forming a sort of last stand, the remaining surviving Hashira line up. Muzan notices that for some reason, the visibility around him has lowered. Meanwhile, Iguro, Sanemi, Guillaume, and Jiyu lunge toward Muzan, all of them having their Demon Slayer marks and red Nichiren swords. Their offensive capabilities are able to surprise Muzan, who now has his hands full. He turns just in time to see Uzui, who has anticipated the path of his tentacles and closed the distance between them. But as Uzui slashes with his sword, the Demon King simply separates the part of his body that would have been hit and regenerates back to his original form. So Uzui decides to back up. Now as Muzan is looking around, he notices that one of the Hashira is missing but can't remember who it was. The realization came after the red Nichiren sword had been plunged through his chest. Muzan looks back in disbelief only to see Muichiro emerge from the mist that had lowered the visibility of the battlefield. Muzan, whose regeneration has slowed greatly, turns toward Muichiro, who has at this point once again slashed at Muzan's head. Muzan then shreds the 14-year-old into pieces, but Muichiro didn't die for nothing. He was able to eliminate one heart and one brain. Having given Muichiro an opening to attack and having sustained even more hits from Muzan, Tengen then collapses from the overflow of poison and goes into cardiac arrest. 47 minutes have passed since the beginning of the battle, and 33 minutes remain until sunrise. Now only Jiyu, Sanemi, and Guillaume remain. Muzan only has 2 hearts and 2 brains remaining. He finds that for some reason he's unable to regenerate his other organs, only to realize that Uzui had been poisoning him from the very beginning with Shinobu's help. Tengen's blades were drenched with Shinobu's poison, and due to Uzui's score, he has landed the most hits out of all the Hashira. Now with 33 minutes remaining, Guillaume, Sanemi, and Jiyu have to find a way to eliminate Muzan. Since Guillaume is the only Hashira left with access to the see-through world, they still have a chance at destroying the rest of his brains and hearts. Muzan doesn't wait for the trio to make a move, instead he charges headfirst at them, but the Hashira are able to evade. The 3 form a perimeter around Muzan, who thrusts his tentacles in all directions. Unable to get close to Muzan, they try a different approach. They all run in different directions down alleyways, which Muzan finds extremely stupid. In his mind, he can now pick them all off one by one. He chases Jiyu first since he sees him as the weakest, and as Muzan moves down the alleyway, he comes to find out that his tentacles can only move forward or backward. So Jiyu is able to parry Muzan's attacks just barely thanks to his well above average defensive techniques. But Muzan doesn't stop his attacks because he's set on killing Jiyu. In fact, he's pissed off that he hasn't killed all the Hashira yet. This rage blinds him. When suddenly hearing a crackling sound, he looks above him only to see the building caving in on him. Guillaume appears from the rubble. Muzan attempts to cut away at the debris, but he's unsuccessful, so he begins to run in the opposite direction of Jiyu, which is where Sanemi appears. Muzan, now boxed in, is minorly damaged from the boulders of debris that Guillaume set down and is faced with 3 Hashira in close combat. With only 27 minutes till sunrise, the Hashira battled with all their strength, using all the breathing techniques they could until they ran out of breath. First, Jiyu's impenetrable defense gave in, and then Sanemi fell unconscious but remained swinging. And even with Guillaume tanking some of the shots, it still wasn't enough. With 15 minutes till sunrise left, Jiyu, Guillaume, and Sanemi laid in the bath of blood, only to be covered by the rubble they thought would save them. Muzan, barely walking straight, was able to get away. The Hashira have lost, and the Demon King has won. Let me know if you agree with my breakdown down in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe because it really does help out the channel a lot. I appreciate y'all's time, and with that being said, Dodgy out.